All right, looks like we are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 2 of The Grass Gets Greener Live. Thank you so much for joining me here today. I'm excited for this episode, and we're going to be joined by director Ana Joanes. We're going to be discussing her documentary film Wrestling Ghosts about healing and breaking the cycle of trauma and depression. So really excited about that. And hey there, Melinda. So I'll be bringing Ana on in just a little bit. I don't think she is with us here yet, but that's okay. So for anyone who maybe doesn't know me, so I am Melissa Wilson, and I'm the host of the Grass Gets Greener podcast, where I interview survivors of childhood trauma and abuse who are doing well now, and they come on and share their stories of what they've been through and how they've been impacted and what has helped them to get to where they are now, in the hopes of providing hope and inspiration for those who are still struggling. And let's see, just checking to see if Ana is with us yet. It doesn't look like it. Okay. Oops. Hang on, trying to get the screen back now. There we go. So, as I said, this is the second episode of The Grass Gets Greener Live. And basically the idea for this show, I did the first one, I think, back in December. And I don't really do them on a regular basis. I do them when there's an opportunity for one. And basically what I do is I use this as an opportunity to talk with someone who maybe isn't, exactly what I'm looking for the podcast, but has something to share when it comes to healing from trauma and abuse. And so that's what this show is about. And so I'll tell you a little bit about how I got connected with the film. So about a month ago, someone who's involved with the film reached out to me and let me know about the film and asked if I would be interested in screening it. And so I thought it sounded interesting, and so I checked it out, and I really enjoyed it. I like what I like about this film is how it actually, over the course of a 2-year span, it documents one woman's journey to healing from depression and past trauma, and I think it's a really unique opportunity to see that journey actually, unfold on screen. We get to hear oftentimes about what people have been through, like on the podcast. But to actually see it, I think is a whole other thing, and it can really be very powerful and make it a lot more relatable for those watching. So I really like the film, and that's why I was really excited to bring Ana on today to talk to us about it and to share it with you. So I think it's just a great resource for the survivor community. So let's see. Let's see if she is here with us yet. Bear with me. I'm not seeing her here with us yet. We'll give her a little more time to join us. Hopefully she's not having any technical difficulties. Never know what's going to go on with the live videos. Oh, there she is. All right. All right, and I see that you are here. Let's see. I sent you an invite to join. Are you able to join in on the call? I don't know if you have an option to join me. There we go. All right, it'll just be a second as she's getting connected.
Hello.
There we go. Hello.
Hi, sorry, I couldn't see a way to join you right at first.
That's okay. No worries.
All right, let me try to make my phone stand without my help. Okay. Almost. Hi.
All right. Awesome. Hello.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, thank you for coming on. I'm excited to talk with you today about this film.
So I can't tell. Does it look like I'm looking at you when I'm looking in this direction or in that direction?
That direction right there.
Okay,
yeah.
That's what I thought. Okay, cool.
There we go.
It's confusing on the phone.
I know. All right. Awesome. Well, thank you for bearing with me with this. Great. So yeah, I don't know how much you caught of what I was sharing before I brought you on.
Yes.
I just welcome people and let them know a little bit about what we're talking about here today, and how I got connected with the film. And so now that you're on, what I like to do is I'm just going to read your bio and let people know a little bit more about you, and then we'll get into some of the questions for you today. That sound good?
All right. Yeah, that sounds great.
Right.
Thank you.
And we got a few people on, so welcome everyone, and it's happy to have you here. You'll have an opportunity to ask questions at the end if you'd like, and otherwise, just happy to have you here checking this out with us. So, Ana Joanes is a documentary filmmaker dedicated to inspiring conscious action and systemic change through film. Her previous works include Generation Meds, an exploration of our fears and misgivings about mental illness and medication, and Fresh, which celebrates the farmers, thinkers, and entrepreneurs who are reinventing our food system. Before dedicating herself to filmmaking, Ana was a lawyer. She founded Real Youth Inc., a video production program for youth coming out of detention and other underserved youth. Ana is the mother of 3 children, and with Wrestling Ghosts, she hopes to contribute to a shift toward a more compassionate world. So, very cool. So, Ana, why don't you start us out by telling us a little bit about the film and who could benefit from watching it?
So, well, you did a great job describing the movie. I mean, we're all children of someone, and I think it's fair to say that none of us have been loved perfectly, and so we all carry some level of pain from our past, some level of unresolved issues from our past, and often we don't know it, we don't see it, and it affects us. I think that what I've come to realize is that all of us are stuck in one way or another, and it shows up in different places. It's a little bit like every year during around New Year's, we all make our list of resolutions, and I think I find that time usually pretty depressing because the resolutions are usually the exact same as the one the year before, right? I'm gonna work out, right? I'm gonna eat healthy, I'm gonna get a new job, right? I'm gonna get out of relationship, I'm gonna get into relationship, I want to socialize more, I want to stop drinking, whatever it is. We tend to have a really hard time getting unstuck, and I think that what's really, really fascinating to me is that we think of this in our culture as psychological problems. If only I had more willpower, if I was more. We often see it as character flaws, right? If I was a better person, I could get this stuff done that would allow me to move past whatever thing that I'm not happy with. When in fact, often it's not at all psychological. It's really our body. It's our nervous system that's stuck. It's our hormonal balance that's not in balance. It's like it's on a really deeply physical level that we have been affected, and changing it takes more than willpower. I mean, willpower works for a couple weeks, as we all know, and then often we fall right back into our bad habits or whatever they are. So I think all of us can benefit. I mean, all of us are not going to relate to Kim in the story the same way. If you're a parent, it's very likely that parenting is in the forefront of your mind, and not damaging your kid is a forefront of your mind, or being the best parent you can be for your child or children is in the forefront. But I think that, I've shown this movie to a bunch of college students, and I was really curious to hear how they would relate to this, this young mom. It felt like so outside of their sphere of interest and their current focus. And I asked the kids at the end of the movie, because they weren't compelled to stay. They weren't it wasn't compulsory attendance, so they stayed, and they stayed for the Q&A. And I was like, why are you all still here talking to me? Like, what's interesting for you in the movie? I was like, and they were like, I think you shouldn't say that it's a movie about parenting. You shouldn't say it's a movie about a mom, because she's just suffering, and we understand suffering. And I thought that was really a really interesting way to put it. I think we all suffer, and we all understand suffering. And it's really a movie about what is the process of getting unstuck. What is the process of healing, so we can suffer a little less in our life. And the truth is that we don't have a lot of images, a lot of we don't know what it looks like to heal, what the process looks like. So I think there's a lot to be said about just having that experience, to watch someone else go through the process, so we know a little bit what to expect.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I really liked about the film, just seeing that, and I think, yeah, it's so much more about parenting. I mean, when I saw it, I saw it as, a film about healing and what that looks like, what that really looks like, kind of on an everyday level. And I think that's very relatable for those who are coming from, that type of past, whether they're a parent or not.
Right. And I think that's the other thing. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I think we all have these images of bad childhood that are very, that are like right out of a movie. It's the kid who's malnourished in the floor of like of an abandoned house. So it's the kids whose parent is, an abusive alcoholic. And, unfortunately, these can be realities for some children. But ACEs, the concept of adverse childhood events, the kind of...
Oh, I think you just cut out there. Oh. Looks like we lost Anna here. We're having some connection issues. Now you're still there. I can see your screen. Nope, there we go. All right, hopefully she'll be able to hop back on here in just a second. Thank you for your patience, everyone. Let's see. All right, hopefully she'll be able to hop back on here in just a little bit. But yes, changing takes more than willpower. That's right, Beatrice. It's a great quote from what Anna was talking about. It absolutely does. And the film, definitely explores that quite a bit. Oh, let's see. She's trying to get back in. It's not allowing me to send you another request. Are you able to use what I had sent you before? Let's see. Yeah, I'm not able to send you another request. You should be able to request to join. There we go. All right, we'll get Anna back in just a sec here.
I'm so sorry.
All right, glad you're back.
I'm so sorry. I didn't realize I could use that same invite, so I apologize for all of this, that break in our flow.
No worries. Well, I think you were just wrapping up on the question that I had asked, anyways, about just sharing a little bit more about the film and who could benefit from watching it. And I know you were also kind of talking a little bit about, what inspired you to make this film. So when did you first get the idea to create this film?
Well, the idea has changed and morphed over time. Initially, I wanted to look at parenting, and just a different approach to parenting, because I didn't know what I was doing with my own kids, and I stumbled on a book about nonviolent communication by Inbal Kashtan, and I really resonated with her approach, and with nonviolent communication, which I had never heard of. But it's basically a mindfulness in communication. And I had been, for maybe 3 years before that, I had started doing some mindfulness training and meditation, and it had been more transformative to me than a decade or more of therapy. So I definitely knew that there was something really valuable in meditation and mindfulness. And I also was very much drawn to, philosophically, to the idea of, like, having an open heart and a compassionate heart and growing into compassion. These were definitely things that were attractive to me. But how to apply it to parenting, was it was great in theory, but I still didn't know what to do with my kid. Like, I still, on a day-to-day level, I still struggled and had power struggles and screamed. And so I was curious to know, well, how does that really look like in practice? And I reached out to the author, and she recommended I start doing some coaching. And her wife, Kathy Simon, is a coach, an NVC coach. And I started doing coaching first with my husband. We did like parenting coaching. And it was really interesting because we went in thinking, oh, we're going to learn some skills to like teach our kids, to train our kids. And within a few sessions, we realized, this is really not about teaching a kids. This is really about, what's going on internally. We got to figure out how to model, how to become aware of the stories that we have in our head, of our judgment, our own feelings and needs. And we got to really work on our communication between the two of us. So for a while, this turned into a lot of couple counseling and a lot of like learning this new, learning to just understand ourselves. And then over time, I feel like it went deeper and deeper. And then, I started looking a lot more at my own childhood and like more at my own inner voices, what's going on in my own head. How do I talk to myself, and how these are rooted in my childhood. And it was a fascinating experience. And I was really curious to see if other people would have the same process, the same kind of peeling of the layers, like entering this very demanding process in some ways, because of parenting, but then kind of leaving parenting behind and really, going into this journey. And so I put out these flyers, and I found 3 families, and each family was paired with an NVC coach, a nonviolent communication coach, including Kim and Matt, with Joshua, who's in the movie. And for 1 year, I followed their process with the coach. And everybody did have a very similar process, a very similar experience of like getting deeper and peeling the layer and going from thinking this was about, teaching their kids to really like, teaching your own, your inner child almost, right? Like dealing with your own yourself. But Kim was such a kind of a special character because she is so aware of and willing to share her most vulnerable moments. The other families would, come to the same places, but then they would have some boundaries about what they would let me film and which counseling sessions I could film. When Kim was willing to really like show the whole process. And I thought that was the most important part. And so I asked Kim and Matt if I could keep filming with them, and I stopped filming with the other families, and I ended up continuing to film for another 4 years or so. And that initial idea of showing a process and showing this peeling of the layers and going deeper and deeper is still the structure of the movie and what it's really about. And a movie that's really about the power, the healing power of compassion. But it also, as I went deeper with Kim, I got to learn about childhood trauma, which I had never heard about. And it really, it's one of these filters that once you learn about it, changes the way you look at everything. You understand your life differently. You understand your friend's life differently. You start seeing everything, kind of the puzzle comes into place in a really helpful way. It was for me, at least. And so I became really, really interested in childhood trauma and understanding these, all the ways that our health is impacted by stress in childhood. And what I was starting to say earlier when we get disconnected is that often we imagine childhood trauma as being really this dramatic way that children can unfortunately be hurt. But a lot of childhood trauma is quite invisible, and most of us have experienced it. So, divorce can be a real stress in childhood, and many of us have had parents who have divorced. So is mental illness, and like, again, how many millions of us have parents who suffer from mental illness, drug use, even like legal drug use, right? Like, a parent who's being medicated by their doctor. I'm thinking about, generation of women on Valium, but it's definitely not just women, so those are just three examples of what are called ACEs, adverse childhood events, which are considered that can become toxic stress in childhood. So many of us, the statistics show that a majority of Americans have experienced at least one ACE, one adverse childhood event. And many of these experiences are, like I said, are quite invisible, and we don't even recognize them in our own lives. So becoming aware of what happened in our childhood, even if we've had decent childhood, that it could have caused stress to our system, can help us understand why we are stuck in the way that we're stuck as adults. And then can also help us see maybe some of the things that we're repeating in our parenting, some of the stuff that we're doing in our parenting that in some ways, unfortunately, continues the cycle of trauma.
Yeah. I really liked how you shared how Kim and Matt, the couple that's in the film, came to be in the film. Because I was wondering about that. And so, because I imagine that, there are some people that wouldn't want to be followed like that.
Most.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I think, like you're saying, Kim was so vulnerable, and I think that made the film even more powerful. So.
Yes.
That was really great.
Yes. I think that we live in a world where we always have to put our best, foot forward, and, Instagram perfect families and vacations. And the truth is always very messy. And I think to a certain extent we know it. But for the most part, I think we still feel quite alone in the way that we suck, in the way that we suffer. And when we start seeing other people's difficulties, whether it's parenting or just living, it kind of relieves that shame, that isolation, that loneliness. I always, my first documentary that you mentioned, Generation Meds, it's really about the stigma around mental illness. And I think that, when I was making that documentary, I came to realize that mental illness creates suffering for sure, but that it's not mental illness that creates the most suffering. It's the isolation and shame that we coat mental illness, that we create around mental illness. So people are not willing to seek help. People feel alone in their suffering because there is so much shame around mental illness. And I think it's true now for a lot of suffering. If you're struggling with your child, and you're not going to go and unless, if you're lucky enough to have a close community of parents that you feel comfortable telling that. But a lot of us, we wouldn't feel comfortable really sharing this kind of vulnerability. We'd be so afraid of the judgment of the other parents. But very likely, if we did say, I'm really struggling with my child right now, I feel really bad because I've been screaming a lot, very likely our friend would say, whoa, I can relate. So I think part of the benefit of a movie like Wrestling Ghosts is to kind of start lifting the shame and isolation that we all feel around in the ways that, around our suffering.
Yeah, that's great. And, as we're talking about, the film looks at that connection between trauma and parenting, and we see the struggles that Kim faces in being a mother to her children while also battling depression. And I've heard you talk about how parenting is an opportunity for healing. Can you tell us more about that?
Yes. So, I think often, our brain is very, very, very good at avoiding suffering, at finding ways to move away from suffering. And often the suffering that we're moving away from is suffering that's actually not even in the present, but it's suffering that's in our past,
Mm-hmm.
as our childhood suffering. And what ends up happening is that we create pain in our body, we create chronic migraine and chronic back pain and incapacity to enter a relationship, right? We do all of these things in the present that's actually to shield us from a pain that's like actually in the past. And often, unfortunately, it takes like very dramatic events to force us to look heads on to
Mm-hmm.
like to deal with that pain, because it's so threatening. It's so hard to go and look at that childhood pain. And so we're very good at avoiding it. So often it takes illness or divorce or the death of someone to really force us to confront this pain and say, okay, I'm in a really bad place, I really need to deal with this now, so I'm going to go to therapy and I'm going to do this hard work. Parenting, it's one opportunity I feel that's driven by the love and the desire to protect. We see these children and we know we want the best for them, and maybe we do have some suffering because we start seeing that we're doing things that we don't like, or maybe we don't even have that concern yet, but we just want to make sure we're doing our best. And that can be a motivation to start doing this work. But I think that really it's an opportunity for healing, because our closest relationship, and that's not just children, it can certainly be partners and others, but our closest relationship are going to just bring back out like the suffering of our past. It's going to just highlight the places that you're going to be, we use the word trigger a lot, but you're going to know something is getting ignited in your past by the way you're reacting to a situation, by the kind of fight that you're having, by the places that start hurting. And so in some ways it's like, the children are like, with a flashlight shining a light at the places that you need healing in. So in that way, it's like a direct route to the work you has to do. I think that's what I meant by saying that it's an opportunity to heal.
Yeah, it gives you that opportunity to look into those areas where work
Yes.
needs to be done. Yeah, the children are shining the light on those areas for you.
Oh yeah, you go right. I mean, I think you feel that way also, like with family members, right? Whether they're your partner or family members, it seems like they just get you in ways like nobody gets you as mad as so and so, right? Like it's like you feel that, and I think these are little openings to the work that needs to be done.
Yeah. Oftentimes when we're responding in a certain way, and we have to kind of look at that and ask ourselves, are we responding to what's going on right now or something that happened to us in our past?
Right, absolutely. And I think, what's hard is often that you have to develop that mindfulness, right? You have to develop that ability to observe what's going on in your head. And so you have to learn this skill, and as you get better at it, you can start noticing like, well, what's really going on in my head? Like, what am I reacting to? And it can take a long time. It's not a fast process, but it's really fascinating it's a really interesting process, because you start developing this witnessing ability. What's going on internally? You can keep taking your kind of internal temperature and say, I'm really agitated now. Why? What's going on? What just got me agitated? And what am I saying? Why am I worried? What's the story I'm telling myself about this situation that making me so worried? And I know that like in my with my three children, one of them is the one that you really does the most of the triggering. And I think that's often a common experience, that one child can be ignite more conflict than another. And one of the things that I've noticed is that with that child, I can feel really powerless. I can feel like I'm stuck. And that really brings me back to a feeling I had as a child, that I had, that I was unable to affect any change, that I was very much stuck. So, I mean, this is just a very kind of vague description, but I think that what I'm saying is that we you know, it's you can kind of start getting this insight as you learn to kind of observe what's going on internally.
Yeah. So I think a lot of times, that awareness isn't always there. But once it is, then, we can use that to start doing the work to heal. So,
yes, exactly.
Yeah, very powerful. While the film focuses a lot on Kim's journey, we also see how her husband, Matt, is also impacted as well. And I know that, it can be challenging for a spouse who has a partner who's struggling with depression. What are some of the things that, perhaps a spouse can do to help their significant other who's going through this type of situation?
Well, that's a hard question for me, just because I think that every situation is so different. Mm-hmm. I think that there's definitely need for more support for the partners of people who are suffering from mental illness, or struggling with the result of the childhood trauma.
There's not as much support for them, I suppose.
Right.
A bit lacking.
And they really need to be, because they're the main source of support, and they're going to be very likely the main source of healing too, right? Because so much of the hurt happens relationally, right? You get hurt as a child through relationship, through your parents and others. And a lot of the healing happens in relationship, whether it's relationship with your children, with your partner, or with a therapist or friends. The relationship is really what's going to support your healing. And so certainly, like, it'd be great if there was more support for partners, and if partners were able to join, support.
Oh, are you still there? You froze up again. Sorry for the technical difficulties, everyone. Hopefully we'll get Anna back on in just a second. Oh. All right, hopefully she will be, able to get back on here. But yeah, I think that's so important too, just for the spouse to have that support also. And oftentimes they're not sure of what to do and how to handle that situation, which can make matters worse, in that case. But if they're able to help, they can be such a great source of support and really aid in the healing of their partner who's struggling. All right. Thank you for your patience, everyone. Just waiting for Anna to get back on. We're going to talk a little bit more about the cycle of abuse and how we can help to break that in those who have been impacted by past trauma and abuse. And we'll just talk a little bit more about the film and where you can go to watch it if you're interested in it. And we'll get some final thoughts that Anna might have for those who are looking for ways to heal from past trauma. So just bear with us. Hopefully we'll get her back on here real soon. Looks like she might be having a little trouble getting back on, but hopefully she'll be able to rejoin us one more time. Oh, here we go. She says her phone just died. All right. Hopefully she'll be able to join us just a second. We are live. This is how it goes. All right. All right, she's turning her phone back on, and it's going to be a few minutes or so. Hopefully not too long, and she'll be back on here. And we'll wrap up with our interview. And I hope you guys have been enjoying it so far and been finding it helpful. You'll be able, if you're not able to stick around right now, you'll be able to catch the full replay once we're done here. This will just be on my page for you to be able, or on my profile for you to be able to watch it later. All right, looks like she's going to be hopping back on here in just a minute. So again, thank you for your patience, everyone. And again, if anyone has any questions, feel free to type those in and we can answer those for you when we are done here. So, all right. Looks like I can bring her back on here just a sec. That's awesome, Melinda. Glad that you're finding the descriptions helpful. So yeah, if anyone has any questions, just start thinking about those and be ready to ask them when we're wrapping up here in just a little bit. If anyone has any questions for me in the meantime, feel free to pop those in. Looks like she's having a little trouble connecting here. Let's see. Hang on, guys, one sec. Just trying to get Anna back on. All right. It's just trying to get on through a different account, so just a second. See if that works, Anna. There we
Oh
go.
my gosh.
Welcome back.
I am this is the most like difficult technology situation. Usually it's not that complicated. I'm really sorry.
It's okay. Glad to have you back on. So, all right.
My phone decided to restart itself and update applications right while we're talking, and I have no idea why it did that, but it did.
It knew we were on here, so.
Yeah. It knew something important was being talked about, so we should just do it. Actually, it was a very good metaphor for what the brain does, right? Like, oh, this is serious. I gotta find a distraction.
Yeah, so I was just letting people know what we're going to be kind of talking about here as we're wrapping things up, and then just letting them know that, we'll be answering any questions that they might have so they can start thinking about what they might want to ask. But did you want to say anything more about the topic of spouses and support for them, what they can do to help?
Right. Well, I think, again, like some of one of the ways that my movie is being used right now that makes me really happy is that it's being like, I have a very big showing happening at the National School Nurse Conference in June. 1,300 school nurses are going to watch the movie. And I think one of the important ways that this movie can be seen is for caretakers, for people, for the school nurses, for the teachers, for the social workers, for all these people who in their vocation, in their work, are taking care of others. And that goes also for partners, because I think that at the end of the day, what's described in the movie is valid for each one of us. It's, you gotta in this very kind of countercultural way, you got to put yourself first, and not in a selfish way at all, but more in the sense of, who do I have the most agency towards, right? Like, who do I have the most control over? Who do I have the most capacity to transform? Who do I have the most responsibility for? And even with very young children, that person is you. And, of course, you got to balance the needs of those, especially of very young children. You can't just say, oh, well, I'm going to let my newborn on the bed while I go for a walk, right? There is some things that you can't do. But I think that on a very core level, you have to put the oxygen mask on you first. You got to deal with your own issues. You got to focus on them, shine the light on them. You got to heal them, because you are going to have the most impact on your loved one by doing that work. So, and that's true also for partners of, people who suffer from the consequences of childhood trauma, is, they're very likely to have had their own childhood issues, right? And they are matched up with this person for a reason, and that is true for Matt too in the movie. So, they need to start doing some really radical self-care. How do they take care of their own needs so that they can have more availability for their loved one? And because often, they might need to compensate for what the partners can't provide to children, themselves. So there is one resource on the website that I'd like to point out to. It's called the Healing Program, which is not a great name for it, but it's basically a series of information both about childhood trauma and its impact on your body, on your nervous system, on your hormones, on your immune system, on all of that stuff. And it goes into looking at, like, well, what does healing looks like? Because, not everybody can afford or has access to a therapist or is ready to go see a therapist, but there's a lot of things that you can do to start soothing your nervous system and healing. And so I think that all of these examples in the website, in the Healing Program, about how you can support yourself are valid whether you're the mom, right, like in the movie, or you're the partner, or you're the teacher, or the nurse, or the social worker. At the end of the day, we all need to learn how to take care of ourselves in this really deep, radical way, so that we have more spaciousness for the needs of others. I talked to a principal, a superintendent, not so long ago, who's doing a lot of work to become a trauma-informed district. And he told me that they say a dysregulated teacher is not, a dysregulated adult is not something, I forgot the saying, but it was basically something about, like, how if an adult, if a teacher is dysregulated, they're not going to be available for the most needy children in their classroom, right? So the first step is to make sure that the adults in the classroom, the adults in the house, are learning to self-regulate, to self-soothe, etc.
Yeah, no, that's great. And so I think the last topic that I want to touch on here is about, the cycle of abuse. And this film, discusses the cycle of abuse. And I'm curious to know what you believe can help in breaking this cycle, so that those who've been impacted by trauma or abuse don't continue that with their children.
Well, I think, basically everything we've talked about, right? I think the first number one is the motivation. None of this is getting done without the motivation. So the fact that you have this awareness that you can say, the way I was raised is not the way I want to raise my children. And I know that the way I was raised has caused some has had an impact on me, and I can feel that impact. And therefore, I feel like I need to somehow protect my children from that impact. Just that awareness and that motivation is the beginning, is the starting point. What I'm hoping is that my movie, that, watching my movie would help people who have that motivation and that awareness see a little bit what the possibilities are and feel hopeful about what they can do to stop the cycle of trauma. And then, that healing program I just mentioned would then give them a few more ideas of what's next, what else can they do. But I think that the answer is really like this radical self-care is, there is children who have suffered from a childhood trauma, or adverse childhood events, toxic stress, whichever way you want to look at it. Often they feel like they deserved it. They feel like something was wrong with them. They were at fault for whatever happened to them, even things that are completely ridiculous, right? I remember this story about this Chinese American woman. She was telling the story about learning how to swim, and her father brought her to the pool in this kind of like in the housing unit, the place where they were living. There was a pool that everybody shared, and literally dumped her into the pool, like, swim or sink. And she remember like struggling to swim, and not swimming, right? Like basically sinking. And eventually somebody got her and brought her to the surface. And she felt shame. She was like, what is wrong with me? Why can't I swim? And she thought everybody was staring at her because she didn't manage to swim, right? And in hindsight, she's like, no, they must have looked at my father like he was a crazy man for dumping this child in the pool who didn't know how to swim. But as a child, which shows you how crazy children's brain are, right? As a child, she thought, everybody is looking at me because I can't swim on my own. I can't learn. How hard can it be to learn to swim, right? Like, what's wrong with me? So our brain do that all the time as children. We interpret the event as our life as, what's wrong with me? Why is mommy not loving to me? Well, mommy might be depressed, but you don't know that, right? Like you're just saying, what's wrong with me? Then as adults, we often feel like we don't deserve the self-care, we don't deserve the healing, we don't deserve to feel better. And so it's very hard sometimes to do the act of self-love that will start you on the road of healing. And so Donna Jackson Nakazawa, the lady that's in my movie that does a lecture and who has this really, really important book called Childhood Disrupted, she says, fake it, just start walking the healing path, even if you don't think you deserve it, because just making these little changes, just doing this effort towards caring for yourself will start sending the message to you deserve it, and that you can heal. So to go back to your initial question, I hope that watching the movie will help. I hope that the healing program that we have on the website will help giving people a sense of what they can do. But basically what you can do is, one, be aware that you need to do this work. Two, have a vision of what it looks like, and hope, and like hope and inspiration that they.
Oh, are you still there with us? Oh, sorry for these technical difficulties today, everyone. Try to get Anna back on here one last time to wrap things up. But yeah, I mean, it's so true what she was saying, that oftentimes you don't feel like you deserve to do the work and to heal, when you're coming from that type of background, when you grew up feeling like you weren't deserving in the first place. And so the awareness is important, the awareness that you need to do the work to heal, and then also feeling like you're worthy of it, feeling deserving of it. And I love that idea of, just getting started and doing it. And in doing that, in that process, you're going to start feeling worthy. So I think that that is some great advice right there. It looks like I'll be able to get her back on just a second. Yes, Melinda, I absolutely agree. Let's see. Beatrice, I know you had a question. No worries, I will get to that either now while we're waiting for Anna or when we're done here. Just trying to get her back on. There we go.
Hi.
All right.
So complicated.
Trying to get better reception.
Well, yeah, I guess maybe that's an idea. I'll go to the place that has the most reception in my house. I apologize.
It's all right. Yeah, I was just telling everyone, I think, that was great advice that you were just sharing right there in regard to breaking that cycle of trauma.
Mm-hmm.
You were mentioning a
Okay,
resource.
I'm here.
Okay. You were mentioning a resource on the film's website, which is wrestlingghost.com, correct? Is that where people can find it?
Yes, correct.
Great. And I'll have that in the comments as well. So
yeah, wrestlingghost.com. So if you go to the site, you can watch the movie at home. There is now, it's a pay as you, as much as you wish, with a minimum of $4.99. And we're asking people to, of course, be as generous as they can be, because this is really how we are paying for our efforts. All of our outreach, we're self-distributed. So we want to make it affordable for everyone to watch. And we are asking for people to, of course, do their best. And then the movie is also available for public screenings and internal training and educational screenings, etc. And there's also a link on the website. So everything is at wrestlingghosts.com.
Okay, great. That sounds good. Yeah, and I want to be mindful of people's time. So we'll go ahead and wrap things up today. And I want to ask, any final thoughts that you'd like to share with the viewers today for anyone who may be a trauma survivor who is looking for ways to heal from past trauma?
I think the only advice I have is really to have a lot of compassion towards themselves. And if it's too hard to access compassion towards yourself, then practice it towards others. Find kind of the easiest person or being. It doesn't have to be a person. It can be an animal that you can feel that kind of like tender, loving energy towards, and just practice compassion, practice kind of loving kindness towards others, and then slowly towards yourself, because compassion is incredibly healing. And often when we have had a lot of trauma in our past, we tend to have a lot of very harsh feelings towards ourselves. So I would say, it's probably easy for others to feel that compassion towards you, and just having that goal, just aiming for more tenderness, more gentleness towards yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Especially in the places where you're not quite where you would like to be.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Yeah, so important to find that compassion for yourself, because that's what's gonna help you and allow you to do that work to heal and feel like you're worthy and deserving
Exactly,
of it. Yeah, absolutely. So, all right. Well, I think hopefully this has been helpful to everyone. I know we've had some great comments here and some great feedback. And so, we'll do a little Q&A if anyone has any questions. I know that, let's see, there was a question here. Beatrice had asked for me, and she was asking what is my relationship to the film. So yeah, basically I had mentioned at the beginning of the call that about a month ago, someone involved with the film had reached out to me, just letting me know about it and wanted to see if I would be interested in checking it out. And so I thought, it sounded really interesting. And so I checked it out and thought it was, just a great resource for the survivor community, and just wanted to be able, to share it with those in my community, and happy to bring Ana on the show today to talk about it more with everyone, and just to get more exposure for it and help it to get out there more, and just raise awareness around the issues regarding this film. And then also she asked, is this a show that I do? I'm not quite sure what you mean by that part of the question. If you're referring to this right here, what we're currently doing, this is a show that I do on occasion when I have someone that I want to interview on a topic related to healing from trauma and abuse. I also have my podcast where on there I interview survivors specifically who are doing well now. So let's see if there are any other questions. Just scroll through some here.
The podcast is called The Grass Get Greener.
Grass Gets Greener, correct. Yeah.
So that, I guess for Beatrice, if she wants to check it out, it's really good.
Thanks. Yeah, it looks like I answered her question there. So awesome, Beatrice. Yeah, and you can find all my stuff at thegrassgetsgreener.com. So great. So we'll see if anyone else has any questions here as we're wrapping things up. But yeah, Ana, just, thank you for coming on here today and for sharing all this helpful information. It looks like we do have a question here for you. I don't know if you can see that. So Beatrice is asking about the healing program that you mentioned. She's trying to see where she can find it.
Yes. So on the menu on at wrestlinggoals.com, there is one of the menu option is called healing program, and then when you click on it, it's a series of slides that you can just click through and read. So that's what it is. Yes, correct. It's a series of pages.
Okay, great.
It's an informational piece. It's not a workshop, or it's not like an actual. That's why I said healing program is not a really good name for it. It's just really an overview of the science of childhood trauma and how it affects you, and then the science of healing, because there's a lot of science on how rest or meditation or what kind of therapy really helps, or why movement can be so powerful to healing. I mean, a lot of things that we know about that can be helpful to our health for other reasons actually can be incredibly supportive of healing from childhood trauma. So it's also just shining a light on those things and the science around these things. So yeah, it's more of an informational package than an actual program for you to, like, it gives you an overview so that you can decide what you want to do to start with.
All right, sounds good. Looks like she was able to find that. So great. So anyone else have any other questions for either Ana or myself?
Well, I think it's good to point out also that you do work, you have coaching resources, that you yourself are a resource for people who are looking for healing. And I know there's much more information on your site about that. I love your challenge. What is your challenge on the site?
Free 5-day self-esteem challenge.
Yes, yeah. I really like that. So
yeah, I think self-esteem is one of those things that really takes a hit, when you go through this stuff growing up. So I wanted to put that together just to offer people a way to begin to rebuild that self-esteem, because that's so important. And that's what's going to make you feel deserving of doing the work beyond that to continue your healing journey.
Absolutely.
So yeah, thank you. But yeah, so if anyone wants to check out what I am up to, you can find me at thegrassgetsgreener.com. So awesome. All right. But yeah, and if anyone has any questions later, if you're watching the replay of this, feel free to pop them in the comments and we'll do our best to respond. But yeah, great. So, all right. Well, Ana, thank you again for coming on. And like I said, hopefully this has been helpful for those who've been watching, whether they've been with us live today. And for those who have been live with us, thank you. Thank you for your patience through the technical issues. And for those watching the replay, thank you as well. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to connect with people like you who are dedicating themselves to bringing about more awareness and more healing to folks who have had trauma in their life. So I'm really thankful for you and thankful for the work you're doing and for your willingness to share resting ghosts with your community. Thank you.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you, and I wish you well with the film, and hopefully, it'll get out there and just continue to inspire and really help those who are coming from a similar background, just to see that journey that Kim is on and really just help them with their healing. So thank you. All right. Well, I guess we will wrap up, everyone. Thank you for being here with us, and thank you for those watching the replay, and we will talk to you soon. All right. Bye.
Bye.